Well, let's get more on the situation in the Middle East broadly with our military analyst, Sean Bell. Hello, Sean. Talk us through a situation which we haven't really been talking about much on the programme today, and that is the situation in the Red Sea with those attacks from the Houthi rebels.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sam. Yeah, we've been hearing that the Houthis have done another series of attacks against merchant shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden region. About 4 o'clock this morning, there were 2 series of operations done that their spokesman has announced, one of which was against the bulk carrier, the US bulk carrier Propel Fortune. Apparently, a series of missiles were fired at it. They went into the sea. They missed the ship. There were no casualties and the ship sailed on its way. The second operation, though, was targeting a series of US destroyers in the region. They claimed that there were 37 of these drones. We believe some of them will be these Shahed 136 drones. The regular viewers will remember this is what Iranians have been providing for Russia. They also have been providing them to the Houthis. Now, the US Navy claims that they have been repelling these attacks. They've been using shipborne missiles and their fighter jets, and that they've shot down 15 drones. But all of this follows a whole series of attacks over the last month or so, which the Houthis attacked 3 vessels successfully, one of which was the Ruby Mar, which we can see the wreckage here under the water in relatively shallow water.
Big symbolic victory for the Houthis.
Well, and that's why this picture keeps coming up, because it absolutely is, although there was a later vessel that was struck that 3 people were killed, far more tragic in my views. But it'd be interesting to see what retaliation the US come up with now, because they don't want the efforts to date haven't stopped the Houthis. They don't want to start a war with the Houthis. Houthis have been very clear, stop the war between Israel and Gaza, and these attacks will stop.
We were getting a pretty bleak picture of the aid situation inside Gaza with that interview I was just doing. There are several initiatives going on by sea, aren't there? We've been looking at the airdrops, but there's this maritime corridor, and then also talk of constructing this pier, effectively, which is going to take some time. But talk us through the maritime corridor and how quickly we could see more aid coming in that way.
Yeah, this was announced just the other day by Ursula von der Leyen from the EU. The ship we're looking at here is the Open Arms. It's been in Limassol at Cyprus for the last 3 weeks, ready to run this maritime aid corridor just as soon as the details. Now, we understand you can get about 200 pallets on this vessel. It's got about a 5-metre draft to it, which means potentially it could actually use the port that exists at Gaza and therefore could get straight run ashore. It's about 200 miles from Cyprus to the Gaza. The plan is that they do a round trip every day, and that will be quite significant. It's interesting, each of the pallets, we think that this ship can probably carry about 10 truckloads.
It doesn't look very big, Sean.
No, exactly. It's about 10 truckloads of aid. There's talk about it also towing a barge with 200 tonnes of rice in the barge as well. But if you add all that up, it's about 3% of the daily need of Gaza. So I wouldn't want to trivialise it, but it is a relatively small proportion drop in the ocean. The real volume will come when the US builds that pontoon area, but of course that's going to take weeks, not days. And in the meantime, we've been reporting on a massive increase in the number of airdrops, but this comes on a day when the Palestinian authorities say that 4 people have actually died as a result of these. They are dangerous. They've reported that some of the parachutes didn't open and struck, but even those where the parachutes have opened, there's been some imagery off the beaches, which look, these are really dangerous when they come down in populated areas. Now, the US have denied that anybody's died, but that's the reports we're getting in.
Getting the aid in is one matter, but the crucial thing is, of course, distributing it. One of the challenges that my last guest was talking about. Talk us through the considerations and the complications.
It's incredibly complicated. Exactly as you say, it's one thing getting aid in there, but we've been seeing the pictures on the beaches of thousands of people. They're so desperate for aid that there's fighting, there's people, all sorts of tragic situations. So when this boat, the Open Arms, arrives, how do you guarantee the safety of the crew and the boat? But also, how on earth do you get the aid off and distribute it safely?
Equitably as well.
Yeah, and it looks very likely that the US doesn't want to put boots on the ground. There's no other appetite for anybody else to do that either. And so security is going to be, how's that going to be provided? I think what's most interesting as well, the time is running out. Tomorrow is the deadline for potentially the IDF going into Rafah. But I think the big strategic issue here, it's been fascinating. Up till recently, the West has been unequivocally supporting Israel. Now we're seeing the West bypass Israel, providing aid directly into Gaza. It seems that the West is no longer prepared to sit back and watch with a grim total of 100,000 casualties and this spiralling humanitarian crisis.
All right, pretty bleak picture, isn't it? Sean, thank you.